Why does your 10 pound buy less than it used to? Because inflation makes prices rise, from your morning coffee to your weekly shop. That means the cost of living goes up for everyone. And how much you feel it depends on where you live. London is more expensive than Birmingham because housing, transport, and even food cost more in the capital. By the end of this video, you'll know who is responsible for managing inflation, how inflation is measured, and who wins and loses from inflation. So, could inflation, which means rising prices, ever be a good thing? Surprisingly, yes. A little inflation each year is healthy for the economy. It encourages people to spend and invest now, before prices rise even more. That spending helps businesses grow, creates jobs, and pushes wages up. Without it, the economy could slow down. But too much inflation is a problem. That's why someone has to keep it in check. So, who is responsible for managing inflation? The rise in prices? In the UK, it's the Bank of England. They manage inflation mainly by adjusting interest rates. When interest rates go up, borrowing gets expensive. People spend and borrow less. With lower demand, prices stop rising so quickly, and inflation falls. When interest rates go down, borrowing is cheap. People spend and borrow more. Higher demand pushes prices up, and inflation rises. But interest rates aren't the only tool. Governments also play a role. If they cut fuel tax, petrol gets cheaper. If they help with energy bills, household costs drop. When big costs fall, overall inflation slows. On the other hand, raising taxes leaves people with less to spend. With lower demand, prices rise more slowly, and inflation comes down. So how do we actually measure inflation? That's where the Office for National Statistics comes in. They track the prices of everyday things we buy, then turn that into the number we hear on the news. The first number you'll hear is CPI, the Consumer Prices Index. It measures the average price of a basket of things we all spend money on: food, clothes, transport, energy, and more. If that basket cost £60 last year, but costs £65 this year, that's CPI. That's an 8% rise in prices, or inflation. It shows how much pricier life has become for the average household. But CPI misses one big cost: housing. CPIH includes everything in CPI, plus housing costs like rent, mortgage interest, and council tax. Since housing is the biggest monthly bill for most families, CPIH is a more realistic measure of the cost of living. We measure inflation as a percentage. Here's the twist: not everyone loses when prices rise. Homeowners and investors can gain, as houses and shares rise in value. But savers lose, because money in the bank buys less. Pensioners and workers on fixed wages lose too, since their income stays flat while prices climb. So, what does it all mean for you? When you hear inflation on the news, remember, it's not just a number. It's the reason your money feels lighter every single day.